Sister Agnes had lived most of her life within the walls of the small convent nestled at the edge of a quiet town. Her hair, long and silver, framed a face lined with gentle wrinkles, each one telling a story of years spent in service, prayer, and care for others. From early morning until the evening bells called the sisters to vespers, she moved through the halls with a soft grace, always helping, always watching over the younger sisters and the children who came to the convent school. Despite the peaceful rhythm of her life, there was one part of her that had quietly longed for something more, a deep, unspoken desire that had followed her since she was a young girl. Ever since she was a child, Agnes had loved the piano. She remembered sitting at the old upright piano in her family home, fingers fumbling over the keys, trying to make sense of the music that lived only in her heart. She had a natural talent, a gift that made even the simplest melody sound like it belonged to something larger than life. But life had other plans. Her family could not afford formal lessons, and as she grew older, her path led her to the convent, where she found a purpose that filled her soul, even if it left her dreams of performing behind. The convent had always been a place of quiet routines and devoted work. Sister Agnes rose before dawn, tended the gardens, cleaned the halls, prepared meals, and taught the children who came to the small school attached to the convent. There was comfort in the rhythm of it, a satisfaction in serving others. Yet, in the still moments before sunrise, when the rest of the world was silent, she would hum softly, imagining melodies that danced through her mind, waiting for the day when she could play them for someone else. One morning, the convent received a donation from a kind-hearted benefactor. A beautiful grand piano, polished and gleaming, standing in the corner of the main hall. The sisters gathered around it, their eyes wide with admiration and curiosity. It was the most magnificent instrument any of them had ever seen, and the sound it promised was enchanting even before a single note was played. The piano quickly became the center of attention, drawing everyone to its elegant curves and shiny keys. Sister Agnes felt her heart leap when she saw it. She had touched a piano before, but never one like this. It seemed as if the instrument had been waiting for her all these years, calling her name softly with its silent promise. She was careful at first, almost shy, as she lifted the cover and placed her fingers on the keys. The moment her hands touched them, a thrill ran through her that she had not felt in decades. Slowly, she pressed down on the keys, and a single note rang out, pure and clear. It was a sound that seemed to echo through the halls and through her very being. She began to play softly, tentative at first, letting her fingers remember what she had long forgotten. The music seemed to flow effortlessly, as if the years of longing and quiet practice had all been building toward this one moment. The other sisters paused in their work, drawn to the sound. Even the children, who had been playing in the courtyard, came to the windows to listen. There was something magical in the way Sister Agnes played, something that went beyond skill and technique. It was as if she was speaking directly from her soul, each note carrying a piece of her life, her dreams, and her heart. For days, she played in secret, finding comfort and joy in the melodies that had been trapped inside her for so long. She practiced early in the morning, late at night, and whenever she could steal a quiet moment. The convent halls were filled with her music, a soft, gentle sound that seemed to lift the spirits of everyone who heard it. The other sisters began to notice, whispering among themselves about the beauty of her playing, though some expressed concern about her age and health. They admired her talent but worried that she might tire herself out, and they gently suggested that she take care not to overdo it. But Sister Agnes could not stop. The music had become a part of her daily life, a light that brightened the quiet corners of the convent. She found herself imagining the faces of people beyond the convent walls, wondering what it would be like if they could hear her play. She dreamed of sharing her music with the town, of bringing joy and inspiration to others, even if only for a short while. The thought both thrilled and frightened her. She was used to the safety and predictability of convent life, and the idea of stepping into the wider world felt overwhelming. One afternoon, as she played a particularly lively tune, a group of children approached her, eyes wide with wonder. They had never seen anyone play like this before. "Sister Agnes, you sound amazing," one of them exclaimed. Another added, "You should play for everyone in town." She smiled softly, brushing her fingers across the keys with a gentle flourish. "I am happy you enjoy it," she said. "Music is a gift, and it is meant to be shared, but sometimes, sharing it requires courage." The children nodded, not fully understanding her words, but feeling the truth in them. They sat quietly, listening as the music filled the room, their eyes reflecting awe and admiration. Sister Agnes felt a warmth in her heart, a quiet reassurance that perhaps the world was ready to hear what she had been keeping inside for so long. Meanwhile, word began to spread in the town about the new piano at the convent and the stories of Sister Agnes playing it. Some townspeople came to the gates, hoping to catch a glimpse of her talent, though the convent's rules allowed only a few visitors at a time. The music reached beyond the walls, carried on the wind, and people paused in the streets to listen, enchanted by the soft, haunting melodies. Sister Agnes, unaware of how far her music had traveled, continued her quiet practice, lost in the joy of playing. She remembered the dreams she had abandoned, the stage that had never been hers, and she felt a mix of sorrow and hope. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a bridge between her past and the life she had built, a way to touch hearts and remind others, and herself, of the beauty that could still exist in the world. Her days passed in a gentle rhythm, filled with music, prayer, and service. She began experimenting with new pieces, sometimes composing her own little melodies that reflected her experiences, her faith, and the love she had for the people around her. Each note was a small act of courage, a quiet rebellion against the years of silence she had endured. She felt alive in a way she had not felt in decades, her spirit renewed by the simple, powerful act of creating music. The sisters, observing her joy and skill, began to see her in a new light. Sister Agnes had always been respected for her kindness and wisdom, but now there was a growing sense of admiration and wonder at the hidden talent she had nurtured for so long. They whispered among themselves, debating whether she should perform publicly, but no one dared speak too loudly. There was a sense that something extraordinary was stirring, something that might change not just Sister Agnes' life but the lives of everyone who heard her. As the days turned into weeks, the convent became a quiet haven for music. Visitors who were allowed to enter were mesmerized by her playing, and soon, the idea of a public performance began to take root in the minds of those who had heard her. Yet, Sister Agnes remained humble, unsure if she was ready to step beyond the walls that had protected her for so long. She knew that the world outside was unpredictable and that sharing her gift would require more courage than she had called upon in years. And so, she continued to play in the quiet moments, letting the music speak for her. Each note carried the weight of her life's experiences, her joys and sorrows, her faith, and her dreams. The piano had become a companion, a friend that listened without judgment, and a voice that could express the depths of her heart when words were not enough. Sister Agnes played not for fame or recognition, but for the sheer love of music and the hope that, one day, it might reach someone who needed it as much as she did. As days passed, Sister Agnes found herself drawn even more to the piano. Each morning, she would rise before the sun, her feet moving quietly across the convent's stone floors, and she would sit at the grand instrument in the main hall. The first rays of sunlight would filter through the tall windows, casting a warm glow on the keys, and she would begin to play. Her fingers danced over the keys with a grace that belied her age, creating melodies that were at once delicate and powerful. Every note seemed to carry a story, a piece of her soul that had been waiting for years to be shared. At first, she played only for herself. It was a private joy, a way to reconnect with a part of herself that had been quiet for too long. But soon, the other sisters began to notice. They would pause in their work to listen, drawn to the soft, haunting music that floated through the hallways. Some of the younger sisters would peek around corners, their eyes wide with wonder, and whisper among themselves about the beauty of her playing. Even the children who attended the convent school began to stop their games and listen when they heard the first notes drifting through the air. One afternoon, as Sister Agnes played a gentle waltz, a small group of children gathered at the doorway, their eyes shining with curiosity. They had never heard music like this before. "Sister Agnes, you sound amazing," one of them said, her voice full of awe. "Can you teach us to play like that?" Another child added, "You should play for everyone in town." Sister Agnes smiled softly, her fingers never leaving the keys. "Music is a gift," she said quietly, "and it is meant to be shared, but sharing it requires courage. Sometimes, the heart must be ready before the world is ready to listen." The children nodded, not fully understanding her words, but feeling the truth in them. They sat quietly, listening as the music flowed through the room, their faces reflecting amazement and respect. For Sister Agnes, their presence was a reminder of why she had devoted her life to service. But it also awakened something deeper, a longing to share her music more widely, to touch hearts beyond the convent walls. Word of her talent began to spread slowly in the town. A few townspeople who were allowed to visit the convent caught glimpses of her playing and were immediately captivated. They described the music as something extraordinary, something that seemed to come from another world. Soon, whispers of Sister Agnes and her piano reached the ears of a local music teacher, a young woman who had recently moved to the town. Intrigued, she requested a meeting with the convent and was allowed to hear Sister Agnes play. The music teacher had expected to see a small, delicate woman with some skill, but what she encountered was far beyond her expectations. Sister Agnes played with such depth, precision, and emotion that the teacher was stunned. She could hear the life experience in every note, the joy, the sorrow, the hope, and the patience that had built over decades. When the final note lingered in the air, the room seemed to hold its breath. The teacher looked at Sister Agnes, eyes wide with amazement. "Your music is incredible," she said softly. "The world needs to hear this." Sister Agnes felt a mixture of pride and fear. She had never imagined herself performing publicly. Her life had been devoted to the quiet rhythms of the convent, and the thought of stepping into the outside world filled her with both excitement and anxiety. She had played for decades, yes, but always in the safe, familiar environment of the convent. The idea of strangers listening, judging, or applauding was overwhelming. Despite her hesitation, the young music teacher was persistent. She suggested a small, community gathering at the local library, a simple event where Sister Agnes could play safely, without the pressure of a large audience. The idea was gentle, thoughtful, and respectful of her age and health. Sister Agnes agreed cautiously, understanding that this could be a first step into a wider world, a chance to see if her music could touch others as deeply as it touched herself. In the days leading up to the event, Sister Agnes practiced tirelessly. She chose pieces that were meaningful to her, compositions that reflected her life experiences and the emotions she had carried for decades. Sometimes, her hands trembled slightly with age, but her determination never wavered. Each note she played was a small act of courage, a step toward a dream she had long thought impossible. The convent was filled with a quiet excitement as the day of the performance approached. The other sisters helped prepare, arranging the space, welcoming visitors, and ensuring everything was ready. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling that something remarkable was about to happen. The children whispered among themselves, imagining what it would be like to hear Sister Agnes play for more than just the convent walls. Even the older sisters, who had been cautious at first, now looked forward to the event, eager to witness the music that had brought such joy and light into their daily lives. On the day of the performance, the small library was filled with townspeople, some curious, some skeptical. They had heard stories of an elderly nun who could play the piano like no one else, but few had any idea what to expect. The room was quiet as Sister Agnes walked to the piano, her back straight, hands clasped for a moment before resting gently on the keys. The moment felt almost sacred, a pause in time before the music began. Then she played. The first notes were soft, tentative, testing the space, but quickly the music grew richer, fuller, and more expressive. It filled the room, winding around the listeners like a gentle breeze, touching each person in a unique way. The townspeople were silent, captivated by the beauty and emotion of her playing. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, while others watched in awe as her fingers moved with skill and grace. It was more than just technical mastery. It was a connection, a bridge between her life experiences and the hearts of those listening. The music told stories of hope, struggle, love, and patience. People who had never been to a concert, who had never expected to hear anything extraordinary in their small town, found themselves moved, inspired, and humbled. Sister Agnes playing was not just entertainment. It was a gift, a reminder of the power of dedication, passion, and the courage to follow one's heart. When the final note faded, there was a long pause, a moment of quiet reverence. Then, slowly, applause began, soft at first, then growing louder, filling the room with a sense of joy and wonder. Some people were moved to tears, overwhelmed by the unexpected beauty of what they had just heard. Sister Agnes smiled gently, bowing her head, her heart full of gratitude and a quiet pride. She had shared a piece of herself, and it had been received with love and admiration. After the performance, people came forward to express their appreciation. They spoke of how touched they were by her music, how inspired they felt, and how her courage encouraged them to pursue their own passions. Sister Agnes listened humbly, feeling a warmth in her heart that was deeper than she had ever known. The experience had been more than she had imagined, a first step into a world that had seemed distant and intimidating, now filled with possibility and hope. As she returned to the convent that evening, Sister Agnes felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. She had taken the first step toward sharing her gift with the world, and the response had been more beautiful than she could have dreamed. She understood that this was only the beginning, that there were more steps to take, more opportunities to touch lives with her music. But for now, she allowed herself to rest in the joy of what had been accomplished. The other sisters gathered around her, their eyes filled with admiration and pride. They had seen her grow, not just in skill but in confidence, and they understood the depth of her journey. Sister Agnes had always been a source of wisdom and guidance, but now, through her music, she was also a source of inspiration, a living example of what could be achieved with patience, dedication, and courage. In the quiet of the convent that night, Sister Agnes sat by the piano once more, letting her fingers trace the keys without playing a full piece. She reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from the young girl dreaming in her family home to the elderly nun who had dared to step beyond the walls that had protected her. She understood that her music had the power to reach beyond the convent, to touch hearts and souls in ways she had only imagined. And with that understanding came a renewed sense of purpose, a quiet determination to continue sharing her gift, one note at a time, with the world. After the small community performance at the library, Sister Agnes returned to the convent with a mixture of emotions swirling in her heart. The experience had been exhilarating and deeply satisfying, but it had also opened a door to a world she had never dared to enter before. The applause and admiration she received had planted a seed of possibility. Maybe she could share her music on a larger stage. Maybe she could touch even more hearts. But with this excitement came hesitation and doubt. Could she really handle the attention? Was it right for someone of her age and position to step into the public eye? The convent itself was not entirely certain how to respond. The other sisters admired her talent and were proud of her accomplishment, but some worried about the physical and emotional strain of further public performances. Sister Agnes noticed the gentle concerns in their voices. Sister Margaret, one of the elder nuns, approached her one afternoon as they sat in the sunlit garden. "Agnes," she began softly, "you have a beautiful gift, and we are proud of you, but please remember your health comes first. The world can wait." Agnes nodded, appreciating the concern. "I understand, Margaret," she replied, her hands resting in her lap. "I am not rushing into anything. I simply feel that perhaps my music has a purpose beyond these walls, and I want to honor that without overstepping." Her words were calm, but inside, a quiet fire was building. She knew that sharing her music could inspire others, just as it had inspired herself, and she could not ignore that calling. The town, meanwhile, was abuzz with curiosity and admiration for the nun who played the piano so beautifully. People began asking if she would perform again, some even suggesting larger venues where more listeners could experience her music. Local newspapers ran small articles about the event, praising her talent and dedication. Some townspeople were skeptical, worried that the attention might be too much for an elderly woman, but many others were excited and hopeful. Amid this growing interest, Sister Agnes began to encounter a new challenge: pressure from outsiders who did not understand her life at the convent. A few local organizers approached the convent leadership, urging them to allow Sister Agnes to perform at a town festival. They spoke of the publicity, the inspiration she could bring, and even suggested the possibility of recording her music. The convent was hesitant, worried that the sudden attention might overwhelm her or disrupt the quiet life they had carefully maintained for decades. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and cast long shadows across the convent garden, Sister Agnes sat alone at the piano. She allowed herself to play freely, letting her fingers explore new melodies and complex harmonies. Music had always been her solace, her companion, and in these moments, she felt both joy and uncertainty. She knew that stepping into the public eye would not be easy. People might misunderstand her, they might judge her, or worse, they might fail to appreciate the depth of emotion she poured into her music. Still, the idea of sharing her gift continued to grow stronger. She began to think carefully about how she could perform in a way that respected her health, her commitments to the convent, and the integrity of her music. She considered starting with small, intimate gatherings, places where she could play without the overwhelming pressure of a large audience. The thought comforted her and gave her a sense of direction. Meanwhile, her relationship with the other sisters became more nuanced. Some of the younger sisters were eager to help her organize more performances. Inspired by her courage and talent, they would assist with arrangements, help manage visitors, and encourage her to continue. Others remained cautious, worried about the emotional and physical toll it might take. Sister Agnes listened to them all, appreciating their concern while quietly making her own decisions. She knew that the path ahead required careful balance, and she was willing to proceed slowly, step by step. One day, a representative from a local music society came to the convent, asking to meet Sister Agnes. The representative had heard about her library performance and was eager to explore the possibility of a public recital. Sister Agnes listened politely, considering the proposal. She felt a mixture of excitement and fear, knowing that this could be an opportunity to reach more people but also aware of the challenges it might bring. After much reflection, she decided to politely decline for the moment, choosing instead to focus on smaller, more manageable performances. This decision did not stop the growing curiosity in the town. People continued to ask, hoping for another chance to hear her play. The children who had first discovered her music at the convent school often came to the gates, asking when Sister Agnes would play again. Their innocent enthusiasm reminded her of why she had begun sharing her music at all. It was not about fame or recognition. It was about touching lives, inspiring hearts, and bringing moments of beauty to people who might need it the most. In the quiet moments of reflection, Sister Agnes began composing her own pieces. She drew inspiration from her life experiences, the beauty of nature surrounding the convent, and the simple joys she had known throughout her years. These compositions were personal, filled with emotion and storytelling, each note carefully chosen to convey feelings she could not put into words. The act of creating music became both a challenge and a reward, giving her a sense of purpose and fulfillment. At the same time, she continued to teach music to the children who attended the convent school. Watching them learn and develop their own skills brought her immense joy. She encouraged them to find their own voices, to express themselves through melody, and to embrace the courage it took to share their talents. In this way, Sister Agnes realized that her influence extended far beyond her own performances. She was shaping the next generation of musicians, nurturing a love for music and the confidence to pursue it. Despite the caution and hesitation from some quarters, a sense of quiet momentum began to build. Sister Agnes understood that her time was limited by age and energy, and she felt a gentle urgency to act while she still could. Yet she remained thoughtful and deliberate, knowing that rushing could compromise both her well-being and the integrity of her music. She practiced daily, refining her compositions, exploring new techniques, and preparing herself for the next opportunity when it would come. As the months passed, Sister Agnes also began to confront her own fears. She had always worried about judgment, about whether the world would understand her music, about whether she was capable of performing outside the safe confines of the convent. Slowly, she learned to acknowledge these fears without letting them control her. She found strength in her faith, in the support of her fellow sisters, and in the quiet satisfaction of mastering her craft. The music itself became a source of courage, a reminder that even in uncertainty, beauty and truth could shine through. During this time, the convent became a small hub of musical activity. Visitors were welcomed for intimate performances, and local musicians would sometimes come to play alongside Sister Agnes, creating a shared experience that was both enriching and humbling. The nuns who had once been hesitant began to see the profound impact of her talent, not just on the town but on the community within the convent. Music had transformed their daily lives, bringing joy, inspiration, and a sense of connection that transcended routine and duty. Sister Agnes' reputation began to grow quietly, spreading beyond the town to neighboring communities. Yet she remained grounded, focused on her purpose rather than the attention. She understood that her gift was not about recognition, but about sharing beauty and emotion with those who were ready to receive it. The balance between caution and courage, between humility and ambition, became the guiding principle of her journey. And so, Sister Agnes continued, day by day, note by note, building both her skill and her confidence. The world outside the convent remained full of unknowns, but she was slowly preparing herself, readying her heart and hands for the moments when she would step beyond the familiar walls. Each challenge, each hesitation, and each small triumph brought her closer to the day when her music would reach even more hearts, touching lives in ways she had only dreamed of. The journey was far from over, but Sister Agnes felt a quiet determination, knowing that when the time came, she would be ready to share her gift with the world. One crisp morning, as the sun poured golden light across the convent gardens, a visitor arrived unexpectedly. It was a young music teacher who had heard of Sister Agnes' performances and could not resist the opportunity to meet her in person. She had come from a neighboring town, having traveled some distance to witness the talent that was whispered about in local newspapers and community chatter. Her eyes sparkled with excitement and curiosity, and she approached the convent gates with a mixture of nervousness and hope. Sister Agnes was tending the small vegetable garden when she noticed the visitor. The teacher introduced herself politely and explained that she had heard about the nun who played the piano with extraordinary skill. The teacher's enthusiasm was genuine, and it was clear she had a deep love for music. She spoke of the children she taught, the performances she had organized, and her desire to give her students examples of inspiration. When she mentioned that hearing Sister Agnes play had become a dream, the elderly nun felt a mix of humility and anticipation. The teacher asked if she could hear Sister Agnes play, and the nun agreed. She led the visitor to the grand piano in the main hall, and with a soft smile, she lifted the cover and rested her fingers gently on the keys. The first notes rang out carefully, softly, testing the room and the visitor's expectations. Soon, however, the music blossomed, flowing freely and beautifully, as if it had been waiting decades to be heard by someone who truly understood its value. The young teacher was speechless, her eyes wide as she listened. She could feel the depth of emotion in each note, the history and patience behind every movement of Sister Agnes' fingers. The music seemed alive, breathing with a life of its own, telling stories without words, capturing joys and sorrows in a way that words never could. When the final chord lingered in the air, the teacher leaned forward, almost breathless. "Sister Agnes, this is incredible," she said quietly. "Your music has to be heard by more people. You have a gift that can inspire the world." Sister Agnes smiled, but there was a softness in her expression, a quiet caution. "I appreciate your words," she said gently. "Music is indeed a gift, but it is also a responsibility. It must be shared carefully and with thought, not rushed into the world too quickly. I am honored, but I must consider what is right for me and for those who have cared for me all these years." The young teacher understood immediately. She suggested a small community event, one that would be safe and manageable for Sister Agnes. It would be held at a nearby town hall, with only a limited number of attendees, most of whom were known and trusted. The idea was simple, respectful, and focused solely on allowing the music to shine without overwhelming the nun. After considering the plan, Sister Agnes agreed, feeling a cautious excitement building within her. Over the following days, the convent became a hub of gentle activity and preparation. The sisters worked quietly but enthusiastically, helping to organize the event, welcoming the visiting teacher, and ensuring that everything would run smoothly. They arranged for comfortable seating, prepared programs with the titles of the pieces Sister Agnes would play, and even created a small reception with light refreshments. The atmosphere was filled with anticipation and quiet joy, tempered by respect for the nuns' well-being. As the day of the event approached, Sister Agnes spent more time at the piano than ever before. She carefully chose her repertoire, selecting pieces that reflected her journey, her faith, and the emotions she wanted to share. Each note she practiced carried a story, a memory, or a feeling, and she immersed herself in the music fully. The act of playing had become more than a pastime. It was a way to prepare her heart and mind for the opportunity ahead, to ensure that every moment of the performance would be authentic and meaningful. The morning of the event, the town hall buzzed quietly with visitors. People had come from near and far, curious and eager to witness the nun whose talent had captured the imagination of the community. Some were skeptical, uncertain that an elderly woman could hold an audience with her music. Others were excited, hoping to experience something extraordinary. Sister Agnes arrived quietly, accompanied by a few sisters and the young music teacher who had been instrumental in arranging the event. Her steps were slow but deliberate, her expression calm yet radiant with anticipation. As she approached the piano, the room seemed to settle into a hush. All eyes turned toward her, and in that moment, she felt both the weight of expectation and the thrill of possibility. Sitting down at the keys, she took a deep breath and let her fingers find their place. The first note was soft, deliberate, almost as if testing the waters of the new audience. Then, as the music began to flow, it expanded, filling the room with a warmth and richness that immediately captivated everyone present. Her playing was fluid and expressive, each piece telling a story that resonated with the listeners. Some closed their eyes, allowing themselves to be carried by the melodies. Others watched in awe as her hands moved gracefully over the keys, producing sounds that were both precise and full of emotion. The audience was drawn into her world, sharing a connection that transcended age, experience, and background. The music communicated something universal: joy, sorrow, hope, and courage all intertwined in the harmony of her performance. The young music teacher watched with admiration, recognizing the years of dedication and quiet perseverance that had led to this moment. She understood that this was more than just a performance. It was a culmination of a lifetime of practice, patience, and love for the art. She felt privileged to witness it and inspired by the courage Sister Agnes displayed in stepping into the public eye. Throughout the performance, the audience remained silent, enraptured by the beauty of the music. Even those who had been skeptical moments before found themselves swept away, caught in the emotional power of each piece. The atmosphere was electric yet serene, filled with reverence and admiration. The room seemed to breathe with the music, each note a heartbeat connecting the performers and the listeners in a shared experience of wonder. When the final note rang out, a brief silence followed, as if the audience could not quite let go of the spell the music had woven. Then, slowly, applause began, soft at first, then swelling into a chorus of appreciation that filled the hall. Some people were moved to tears, touched by the unexpected depth and beauty of the performance. Others stood quietly, their faces reflecting awe and gratitude. Sister Agnes allowed herself a small, humble bow, her heart filled with both relief and joy. After the performance, people approached her to express their admiration and thanks. They spoke of how moved they had been, how inspired they felt, and how her courage encouraged them to pursue their own passions. Sister Agnes listened with a gentle smile, offering quiet words of gratitude and encouragement in return. She realized that this experience had touched more lives than she could have imagined, and it reinforced her belief that music had the power to connect, heal, and inspire. Returning to the convent later that evening, Sister Agnes felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey had been challenging, filled with uncertainty and hesitation, but it had also been profoundly rewarding. She had taken a step beyond the familiar walls of the convent and found that the world was ready to receive her gift. Her music had bridged gaps, brought people together, and shown that age and circumstance need not limit the reach of one's passion. The sisters gathered around her, sharing in the excitement and joy of the day. They had witnessed her courage, skill, and grace, and they understood that this was only the beginning. Sister Agnes had proven that the heart, when guided by dedication and love, could overcome fear and hesitation, creating moments that resonated far beyond the immediate audience. In the quiet of her room that night, Sister Agnes reflected on the day's events. She thought about the young music teacher, the audience at the town hall, and the countless people whose lives had been touched by her performance. She understood that this was a turning point, a moment where her quiet dedication had blossomed into something larger than she had ever dared to imagine. And as she rested her hands on the piano once more, she felt a deep, abiding sense of peace and purpose, knowing that her music would continue to reach hearts and inspire courage in ways she had only begun to discover. After the remarkable town hall performance, Sister Agnes returned to the convent with a mixture of satisfaction, exhaustion, and a quiet sense of wonder. She had never imagined that so many people could be so deeply moved by her music. Even in her most private moments of practice, she had not anticipated the profound effect her playing could have on strangers, touching hearts in ways she had only dreamed of. That night, she sat by the piano in the convent hall, fingers resting lightly on the keys, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. The following days were filled with a gentle flurry of activity. Word of Sister Agnes' performance had spread quickly through the town and beyond, carried by local newspapers, radio stations, and even social media posts from those who had attended. People were captivated by the story of an elderly nun, who had spent most of her life in quiet devotion, stepping into the world to share her extraordinary gift. The narrative of courage, patience, and hidden talent resonated deeply, inspiring not only music lovers but anyone who had ever held back a dream. The convent received letters, messages, and calls from individuals and organizations expressing admiration and requesting performances. Some were from local schools eager to inspire students, while others were from community centers and charities seeking a meaningful and uplifting experience for their audiences. Even a few renowned musicians reached out, hoping to collaborate or to witness her play firsthand. Sister Agnes read each message carefully, her heart warmed by the genuine interest and support, yet she remained thoughtful and cautious, aware of her age and health. One morning, the young music teacher who had first encouraged her to perform returned to the convent. She was brimming with excitement and ideas, suggesting that Sister Agnes could inspire countless more people if she allowed herself to reach wider audiences. She proposed a series of intimate concerts at nearby venues, each designed to highlight the beauty of her playing while maintaining a safe and manageable schedule. The plan was careful and respectful, and Sister Agnes felt a renewed sense of purpose as she considered it. As she prepared for these upcoming performances, Sister Agnes continued to practice daily, refining her technique and exploring new pieces. Her fingers, though slower than in her youth, were guided by decades of experience, patience, and a deep understanding of music. Every note she played carried emotion, memory, and intention. She composed small original pieces inspired by her life, her faith, and the beauty of the world around her. These compositions were intimate, personal, and rich with meaning, connecting her past with the present in a way that was both profound and moving. The first of the new series of performances was scheduled at a small community theater, a modest venue with a warm and inviting atmosphere. The audience consisted of local residents, journalists, and a few music enthusiasts who had traveled specifically to hear her play. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a quiet excitement that made the theater feel alive even before the music began. Sister Agnes arrived, accompanied by the young music teacher and a few supportive sisters from the convent. She walked slowly to the piano, taking in the audience with calm eyes, her heart steady yet alive with emotion. As she sat at the keys, the room fell silent. She lifted her hands, feeling the familiar texture of the ivory beneath her fingers. With the first gentle chord, the audience was transported, drawn immediately into the beauty and depth of her music. Each piece she played was a story, a reflection of her life's journey, a tapestry of experiences, emotions, and dreams. The audience was mesmerized, some closing their eyes, letting themselves be carried by the melodies, others watching intently as her hands moved with grace and precision. The music filled every corner of the theater, creating a connection between Sister Agnes and her listeners that was almost tangible. People were moved in ways they had not anticipated. Some were brought to tears, overwhelmed by the elegance and emotion of the performance. Others were inspired to reflect on their own lives, thinking about dreams they had postponed or passions they had neglected. In that moment, the power of music as a universal language was undeniable, and Sister Agnes was its gentle, guiding voice. News of this performance quickly reached beyond the town. Reports, videos, and social media posts captured the attention of a much larger audience, sparking curiosity and admiration far and wide. People marveled at the story of a nun who had lived quietly for decades, now emerging with a talent so extraordinary that it captivated anyone who heard it. The combination of her humility, age, and the unexpected brilliance of her performance made the narrative even more compelling, and soon, invitations began arriving from other towns, cultural centers, and charitable organizations. As the attention grew, Sister Agnes remained grounded. She accepted invitations carefully, ensuring that each performance would be manageable and meaningful. She continued to prioritize her health and the peaceful life of the convent, balancing public appearances with quiet reflection and prayer. The young music teacher and supportive sisters helped coordinate the events, ensuring that logistics were smooth and that Sister Agnes could focus entirely on her music. Each performance brought new experiences and reactions. People from all walks of life were touched by her playing. The elderly, the young, students, artists, and community leaders alike. Many described the feeling of being emotionally transported by her music, experiencing a sense of peace, hope, and inspiration. Sister Agnes listened to their feedback humbly, grateful that her music could bring joy and meaning to others. She had never sought recognition or fame, but she had discovered that her gift had the power to uplift and unite people in ways she had only imagined. The town, once quiet and sleepy, began to celebrate her as a local treasure. Children who had first discovered her at the convent school told friends and family. Adults spoke of her performances with awe, and visitors came from further afield, eager to witness the nun whose talent had captivated so many hearts. Even those who had been skeptical at first were left in stunned admiration, unable to deny the skill, emotion, and dedication behind her music. Through all of this, Sister Agnes remained humble and centered. She understood that the attention was not for her alone. It was for the music itself, and for the message it could convey. She continued to teach, compose, and play, always mindful of the balance between sharing her gift and maintaining the quiet, devoted life that had sustained her for so many years. In this way, she became a model of grace, patience, and courage, demonstrating that age and circumstance need not limit one's ability to inspire and create. One evening, after a particularly moving performance at a community center, Sister Agnes returned to the convent and sat at her piano in the empty hall. She allowed herself to play freely, exploring new melodies and improvising softly. Her fingers moved with confidence and joy, each note a testament to the journey she had undertaken. She reflected on how far she had come, from secret practice sessions in the convent hall to performances that left entire audiences in awe. The music had become a bridge, connecting her past and present, herself and the world, in a way that was deeply fulfilling. In those quiet moments, she realized that her life had been transformed not by the applause or recognition, but by the courage to follow her heart and share her gift. Each note played, each melody composed, was a small victory over fear and doubt, a testament to the power of persistence, dedication, and passion. Sister Agnes understood that her journey was ongoing, that there would be more performances, more opportunities, and more hearts to touch. But she also knew that every step she had taken so far was meaningful, every challenge had been worthwhile, and every audience member had been touched by something profound and lasting. And so, as she rested her hands on the keys and let the quiet hum of the piano fill the empty hall, Sister Agnes felt a deep sense of peace. She had played, she had shared, and she had inspired. The world had been stunned by her music, and yet she remained grounded, humble, and focused on the joy of creating. In that moment, she knew that her journey was not just about the notes she played, but about the lives she touched, the courage she inspired, and the beauty she brought into the world, one note at a time. As the months went by, Sister Agnes' story continued to spread far beyond her town. Reports of an elderly nun with extraordinary piano talent captured the imagination of people across the country and even abroad. Newspapers and online platforms shared her story, calling her a living testament to the idea that talent and passion are not bound by age or circumstance. Videos of her performances went viral, showing audiences the grace, precision, and emotion that flowed from her fingertips. The quiet nun from a small convent had become an inspiration to countless people, and her music began to touch lives she could never have imagined. Despite the growing fame, Sister Agnes remained grounded. She continued her daily life at the convent, tending the gardens, assisting in the kitchen, and guiding the children who came for music lessons. Her routine had not changed, but her reach had expanded. Letters from admirers arrived regularly, filled with stories of how her music had comforted, inspired, or healed them. She read each letter carefully, often smiling or quietly wiping a tear, humbled by the impact her simple gift had made. The young music teacher continued to support her, coordinating invitations and performances while ensuring Sister Agnes could maintain her health and peace. Then came the invitation that would change everything. A world-renowned concert hall, famous for hosting the greatest musicians, extended an invitation for Sister Agnes to perform. The idea was daunting. Performing in front of an audience of thousands, including professional critics and international media, was a challenge unlike anything she had faced before. Sister Agnes felt a mixture of fear, excitement, and disbelief. She had performed for communities, small theaters, and local events, but this was a stage that would place her talent in the global spotlight. The convent held a quiet meeting to discuss the invitation. The sisters expressed concern for her health and the potential pressures of fame, but they also recognized the profound opportunity to share her gift with the world. Sister Agnes listened thoughtfully to their advice, understanding the risks, yet feeling an undeniable pull to accept. She realized that this might be the moment to fully embrace her music and to demonstrate what perseverance, faith, and dedication could achieve. After careful reflection, she agreed to perform, with her sister's blessings and careful preparations in place. In the weeks leading up to the concert, Sister Agnes devoted herself to rigorous practice. The grand piano in the convent became her sanctuary, a place where she could experiment, refine, and connect with her music more deeply than ever. She composed new pieces, blending classical techniques with her own inspired melodies, creating performances that were uniquely hers. Each session was a balance of challenge and meditation, her mind focused, her heart open, and her fingers moving with the confidence earned from decades of dedication. When the day of the concert arrived, Sister Agnes traveled to the city with a small group of supportive sisters and the music teacher. The concert hall was enormous, filled with thousands of eager listeners, including journalists, critics, and music enthusiasts from around the globe. The lights were bright, the audience buzzing with anticipation, and the atmosphere charged with energy. Sister Agnes approached the stage quietly, her hands clasped for a moment as she took a deep breath. She could feel the weight of expectation, yet she remained calm, grounded by her years of experience and the inner strength she had cultivated through her life. As she sat at the grand piano, the hall fell silent. The moment was electric with anticipation, and then she began. The first notes were gentle, almost tentative, exploring the vast space of the hall. But as the music unfolded, it grew richer, more expressive, and deeply moving. Every chord resonated through the audience, each melody telling a story of hope, patience, and enduring beauty. Her hands moved gracefully across the keys, creating music that was technically flawless yet emotionally profound. Listeners were captivated, unable to take their eyes off her as the sound washed over them like a wave of pure emotion. The audience's reactions were immediate and powerful. Many were moved to tears, touched by the unexpected depth and beauty of her performance. Critics were astonished, praising not only her skill but the passion, maturity, and authenticity of her music. Journalists scrambled to capture the moment, recording videos, taking notes, and sharing stories that would reach millions worldwide. It was a performance that defied expectations, leaving everyone in the room stunned by the talent, grace, and courage of an elderly nun who had spent decades perfecting her craft in quiet dedication. As the final notes lingered and the hall remained in a moment of stunned silence, a wave of applause erupted, echoing through the vast space with a thunderous roar. People rose to their feet, cheering and clapping, some wiping tears from their eyes, overwhelmed by the experience. Sister Agnes allowed herself a humble bow, her heart full of gratitude and awe. She had faced the fear of stepping into a larger world, and her music had transcended boundaries, touching hearts on a scale she had never imagined. After the performance, the response was extraordinary. International media outlets covered her story, calling her an inspiration and a symbol of perseverance, talent, and grace. People around the world shared videos and messages, celebrating her courage and the beauty of her music. Requests for interviews, additional performances, and collaborations poured in, but Sister Agnes remained selective, focusing on opportunities that aligned with her values and well-being. She continued to prioritize her life at the convent, balancing her newfound fame with the quiet, devoted routine that had shaped her life. Despite the global attention, Sister Agnes' perspective remained simple and heartfelt. She often said that she played not for fame, not for recognition, but to share something beautiful and meaningful with others. Each note was a way to communicate what words could not, to touch lives in a profound and lasting manner. She continued to teach children, compose music, and play for small audiences, understanding that the true joy of her gift lay in connection and inspiration, not in accolades. In the days that followed, letters and messages from around the world arrived at the convent. People shared how her music had brought comfort during difficult times, encouraged them to pursue dreams, or reminded them of the beauty in life. Sister Agnes read each message with humility, often moved to tears, grateful that her music could have such a positive impact. She realized that the journey had always been about more than personal satisfaction. It was about using her gift to inspire, heal, and uplift others. Through it all, she remained a humble figure, grounded in her faith and her daily routines. The convent continued to be her home, her sanctuary, and the foundation from which she shared her music with the world. Visitors continued to come, but Sister Agnes maintained a balance, ensuring that every performance and interaction was meaningful, sustainable, and true to her purpose. One quiet evening, after another heartfelt performance for a visiting community group, Sister Agnes returned to the piano in the convent hall. She allowed herself to play freely, improvising softly, letting her emotions and experiences guide her fingers. The music filled the empty hall with warmth and resonance, reflecting a life of dedication, courage, and beauty. In that moment, she understood fully the impact of her journey. The way her music had touched the world, inspired courage, and reminded people of the importance of following one's heart, no matter the age or circumstance. As she rested her hands on the keys and gazed out the window at the fading light, Sister Agnes felt a deep sense of peace. Her journey had been long and filled with challenges, but every step had been meaningful. She had shared her gift, stunned the world with her talent, and inspired countless individuals to embrace their own passions. And yet, she remained humble, centered, and devoted to her calling, understanding that true fulfillment comes not from recognition or fame, but from the courage to follow one's heart and the joy of sharing one's gift with the world. Sister Agnes had become more than a musician. She had become a symbol of hope, perseverance, and the extraordinary power of quiet dedication. Her story would continue to inspire for generations, showing that talent, faith, and courage could transcend barriers and touch lives in ways that no one could predict. And as she played on, note by note, melody by melody, she knew that her journey was not just her own, but a gift she could share with the world. A gift that would continue to resonate long after the last chord faded into silence.